"It hurts when I sit," words whispered by a Japanese nurse in an American prisoner camp during World War II. The American medic wasn't supposed to care. Enemies don't deserve mercy. But when he cleaned her wound instead of turning away, something changed between them that would shake the foundations of hate itself. Amidst the chaos of war, two souls from opposite sides found something neither expected: humanity in the eyes of the enemy. When the nurse saves an American soldier's life during a violent storm, the camp begins to see her differently. But not everyone believes mercy crosses battle lines. As danger closes in and loyalties are questioned, their growing bond becomes a target. The nurse is suddenly transferred away, violence erupts, and blood stains the campground. When the war ends and an unexpected letter arrives from across the ocean, a small Montana town must confront its deepest prejudices. What happens when the person who heals your wounds wears the face of your enemy? And can two people divided by war find peace together when the whole world stands against them? The air hung heavy over the Allied field camp on Luzon. Thick humidity made shirts stick to backs and tempers run short. Under a tattered canvas awning, rows of Japanese prisoners sat with eyes down, their uniforms dirty and torn. The tropical sun beat down mercilessly, making the shade under the awning the only relief from the heat. Among them sat Nurse Aiko Tanaka, once proud in her Imperial Japanese Army uniform. Now she perched awkwardly on a rough wooden stool, trying not to wince. The fresh wound on her leg burned like fire whenever she shifted her weight. Two American officers stood before her, their faces hard with suspicion. One held a clipboard, the other paced back and forth, asking questions in loud, slow English, as if volume could bridge the language gap. "Where were your troops heading? What units? Names of commanders?" The officer's voice boomed across the compound. Aiko understood more English than she let on, but she kept her face blank. Her training had prepared her for this. Show nothing, say less. "I am nurse," she finally said in careful English. "I help wounded, Japanese, Filipino, all same." She shifted again on the hard stool and couldn't hold back a small gasp of pain. "It hurts when I sit," she murmured, almost to herself. The nearest guard chuckled, and soon others joined in. Their laughter stung worse than the wound. Aiko straightened her back and lifted her chin. She would not show weakness. Standing at the edge of the tent, Corporal Sam Kitteridge watched with a frown. The young medic had seen too much death to find humor in anyone's pain. He noticed how the woman's leg wound had soaked through its dirty bandage. He saw the slight trembling in her hands that she tried so hard to hide. War made enemies of strangers, but suffering looked the same on everyone. When the officers finally finished and walked away, Sam took a canteen from his belt and approached her carefully. The guards tensed, hands moving to their rifles. "Easy, boys," Sam said. "Just offering some water." He held the canteen out to Aiko. She looked at it, then at him, her dark eyes suspicious. She shook her head once, sharply. "It's just water, ma'am," Sam said softly. She refused to take it, but in her eyes, Sam saw something shift. Surprise, perhaps, at being called ma'am instead of prisoner or worse. Sam nodded respectfully and stepped back. As he walked away, he felt her eyes following him. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The first small flicker of something human between them. Morning mist rolled over the camp as dawn broke. Sam moved through his duties in the medical tent, counting bandages and organizing medicine bottles. Every now and then, he glanced at the prisoner area. The Japanese nurse sat alone on a crate, her face turned toward the rising sun. Even from a distance, Sam could see her leg wound had worsened. The bandage was now stained yellow-green with infection. Sam approached Sergeant Keenan, the gruff head of the medical unit. "Sarge, that Japanese nurse needs attention. Her leg's going bad." Keenan barely looked up from his clipboard. "She'll live." "Not if that infection spreads. We're short on penicillin as it is. Better to clean it now than waste medicine later." Keenan squinted at him. "Since when do you worry about wasting medicine on a prisoner?" "Since I became a medic, sir. Red Cross doesn't distinguish between uniforms." After a long moment, Keenan sighed. "Fine. Clean her up. But make it quick, and take your sidearm." Sam gathered supplies and approached the prisoner area. The guard nodded him through after checking his orders. As Sam neared Aiko, he noticed how she stiffened, watching his medical bag with wary eyes. "Good morning," he said, keeping his voice gentle. "I'm here to help with your leg." She said nothing, but didn't resist as he knelt beside her and carefully removed the soiled bandage. The wound underneath was angry red, the edges puffy with infection. "This will sting," he warned, holding up antiseptic. Sam worked in silence, cleaning the deep cut along her thigh. She flinched but made no sound. Her discipline impressed him. Most men would be cursing or crying. As he wrapped a fresh bandage around her leg, Sam tried a few Japanese words he'd picked up. "Yoi? Better?" Surprise flickered across her face. "Hi," she replied, then switched to careful English. "Yes, better now. I'm Sam, Corporal Kitteridge." He pointed to himself. "You are?" "Aiko Tanaka." She hesitated, then added, "Nurse." "You worked in a hospital?" She shook her head. "Field, like you. Both sides." "Both sides?" "Japanese wounded. Filipino too. Some die, some live." Her fingers moved in a small gesture, as if checking a pulse. "Same blood." Sam nodded. "Same blood." He finished securing the bandage. As he packed up his supplies, rain began to fall, pattering on the canvas overhead. The sudden shower would last for hours. Typical monsoon season. Sam noticed Aiko glancing at the leaky corner of her tent where water had already begun to pool. That evening, after finishing his duties, Sam took his poncho and a small wooden crate to her tent. He wedged the crate under the lowest part of the canvas to improve drainage and spread the poncho over a wet patch of ground. He sat outside her tent in the steady rain, a small Bible open on his knee. The worn pages were a comfort, something familiar in this strange, brutal place. He wasn't sure why he felt drawn to sit there, reading by flashlight, but something about the wounded nurse pulled at him. From inside the tent, Aiko watched his silhouette against the canvas. Her enemies had names now, and sometimes, it seemed, they had kindness too. Word spread quickly through the small camp. By noon the next day, everyone knew Kitteridge is nursing the Jap lady. In the mess tent, Sam felt the stares and heard the whispers. He kept his eyes on his food until Tommy Reeves, another medic, slid onto the bench across from him. "Making friends with the enemy, Kitteridge?" Tommy asked, his voice carrying just enough for nearby tables to hear. Sam took another bite of beans. "Just doing my job." Tommy leaned closer. "Look, I get it. She's a nurse. But be careful. Compassion can get a man court-martialed out here. Some of the boys are talking." "Let them talk. Her wound was infected, would have spread." "Just watch yourself," Tommy warned. "War makes people forget the difference between kindness and treason." Despite the warnings, Sam continued treating Aiko's wound twice daily. Each time he taught her a new English word. "Clean," he said, demonstrating with the antiseptic. "Clean," she repeated carefully. "Food," he said the next time, sharing a portion of his ration. "Food," she echoed, accepting the gift with a small bow. "Safe," he told her, securing the fresh bandage. At that word, she looked up sharply, her eyes questioning. Safe? Here? Sam didn't know how to answer that honestly. Instead, he asked, "How did you become a nurse?" "Family tradition. Mother, grandmother, all healers." Pride straightened her shoulders. "I follow path." As days passed, Aiko began to help Sam with other prisoners. She spoke softly in Japanese to wounded men who would not meet American eyes. Under her gentle urging, they allowed treatment. She translated their symptoms and thanked Sam in her improving English. The other Americans watched with wary curiosity. Some still muttered, but others nodded in grudging respect when Aiko's knowledge of herbs helped treat a rash that had puzzled their medics. One evening, as Sam finished rebandaging her leg, Aiko looked directly at him for the first time. "Thank you, doctor," she whispered. Sam smiled faintly. "Just Sam, ma'am. I'm only a corporal." She nodded solemnly. "Sam," she said, testing the name. "Thank you, Sam." Something warm and human passed between them, a small bridge in a world torn by war. Neither noticed Sergeant Keenan watching from across the compound, his face unreadable. The afternoon heat lay thick over the camp like a wool blanket. Every movement seemed to take twice the effort. Sam and Aiko helped move medical supplies to higher ground after a warning about possible flooding. Despite her still healing leg, Aiko worked steadily, organizing bandages and medicines. Nearby, guards supervised Japanese prisoners unloading a supply truck. One prisoner stumbled, dropping a crate that split open upon impact. Among the scattered contents lay something that made everyone freeze, a broken radio transmitter. Within minutes, the camp erupted. Officers shouted orders. Guards formed a tighter perimeter. The prisoners were forced to kneel in rows while the radio was examined. Sergeant Keenan strode over to where Sam and Aiko stood. "What's this about?" he demanded, pointing at the radio. "Ask her what they were planning." Sam turned to Aiko. "Do you know anything about this radio?" Fear flickered in her eyes, but she kept her face calm. "Many prisoners talk of home, family, Miss Japan, not spies." Several Japanese men argued loudly among themselves. Officers demanded translation. Aiko spoke rapidly with the men, then turned back. "They argue about food portions. This one," she pointed to an older man, "says younger men need more rice. Nothing about radio." Sergeant Keenan's eyes narrowed. "That's an awful lot of shouting about rice." "Japanese way," Aiko said simply. "Loud words, calm heart." Keenan wasn't satisfied. "Keep her away from the other prisoners until we sort this out. Something doesn't smell right." He walked away, barking orders for a full search of the camp. That evening, Aiko sat alone outside her tent, more isolated than before. Sam brought her dinner ration but couldn't stay to talk with the new restrictions. As he turned to leave, he saw her lips moving silently. Through the gathering darkness, Sam thought she might be crying. But as he looked closer, he realized she was praying. The familiar motions of faith touched something in him, even across the divide of language and war. "The Lord listens in all tongues," he whispered through the canvas wall. Inside her tent, Aiko's prayer paused, then continued, perhaps a little less alone. The storm hit without warning, the way tropical typhoons often do. One moment the air was still and heavy. The next, howling winds tore through the camp like angry spirits. Rain fell in blinding sheets. Canvas tents ripped from their stakes. The carefully dug trenches around the camp overflowed, turning the ground into a muddy river. "Secure the medical supplies!" Sergeant Keenan shouted over the wind. Sam and Tommy rushed to move crates of medicine to higher ground. Through the chaos, Sam spotted Aiko helping other prisoners reinforce their shelter. Despite her still healing leg, she worked tirelessly. tying down corners and digging drainage channels. A shout cut through the storm's roar. "Truck down! Man trapped!" Near the edge of camp, a supply truck had slid in the mud and tipped onto its side. The driver's arm protruded from the window, waving frantically. Sam ran toward it, sloshing through ankle-deep water. Before he could reach the truck, he saw a smaller figure dart past him. Aiko, moving with surprising speed despite her injury. She reached the truck first and climbed onto its side, now facing upward. The American driver looked startled to see a Japanese face, but his panic overrode any hesitation. Together they worked to free his trapped leg from under the dashboard. Sam joined them, and with their combined efforts, they pulled the driver free just as the truck shifted deeper into the mud. As they helped him away, a sudden metallic groan warned of danger. The truck's cargo shifted, the rear doors burst open, and crates tumbled out. Something sliced through the air. Aiko cried out, clutching her thigh. A jagged piece of metal shrapnel from a broken crate had sliced into her leg, the same leg with the previous wound. Blood seeped between her fingers, quickly washed away by the pouring rain. Sam lifted her without hesitation and carried her to the medical tent, which had somehow survived the worst of the storm. Under the uncertain light of a kerosene lantern, Sam examined the new wound. The shrapnel had cut deep, dangerously close to the still-healing first injury. "I need to stitch this," he told her. "It's going to hurt." Aiko nodded, her face pale but composed. Sam worked quickly, cleaning the wound and preparing his needle. As he began to stitch, her body tensed, but she made no sound. Halfway through, she let out a small, unexpected laugh, more a release of tension than actual humor. "It hurts when I sit," she said, repeating her words from their first meeting. Sam looked up, surprised, and saw the ghost of a smile on her pain-drawn face. He finished the last stitch and replied softly, "Then stand on grace a while." She tilted her head, not understanding the expression but feeling its kindness. Outside, the storm began to ease. Dawn broke over a battered but surviving camp. The rescued driver told others how the Japanese nurse had been first to help him. Men who had called her enemy just days before now nodded respectfully as they passed. In the strange alchemy of crisis, something had changed. They began to see her not as a faceless foe, but as a nurse who had saved one of their own. Morning brought clear skies and a new mood to the camp. The storm had left destruction, but also washed away some of the invisible barriers between people. Sam made his rounds, checking on patients with Aiko at his side. Her help was now openly accepted, even by Sergeant Keenan, who had begrudgingly acknowledged her medical skill after seeing her quick action during the storm. "Tell her the bandages need changing twice daily," Keenan said, no longer speaking about Aiko as if she weren't present. "I understand," Aiko replied directly, her English improving daily. "Clean wound, prevent infection." Keenan's eyebrows rose, but he nodded. "Carry on then." In the mess tent, Tommy Reeves brought an extra cup of coffee and set it before Aiko, without comment. She accepted with a small bow. Nearby, soldiers who once glared now made space at their table. Later that day, as they organized medical supplies, Sam found himself smiling more than he had in months. Something about Aiko's quiet dignity and unexpected courage had rekindled his belief that humanity could survive even in war's darkest corners. He wrote in his journal that night, "Mercy feels like rebellion here. Maybe that's exactly what it is. A rebellion against the madness of war." At sunset, Sam found Aiko sitting outside her tent, watching the sky turn gold and pink over the distant mountains. She was murmuring softly in Japanese. "What are you saying?" he asked, sitting nearby, Old poem from home, about beauty and broken things. She gestured toward the sunset. War is ugly, sky's still beautiful. Sam nodded. My mother used to say God paints the sky to remind us he's still there, even on the worst days. Your mother is wise woman. She is. Sam smiled at the memory of home. Montana's endless sky, his mother's hymns filling their small kitchen, his father's steady hands on the plow. It seemed a lifetime away from this island battlefield. You have family? He asked. A shadow crossed Aiko's face. Brother, soldier, I not know where. She paused. Parents gone, home in Kyoto, maybe gone too. Sam wanted to offer comfort, but knew no words could fill such losses. Instead, he simply sat with her as darkness fell, sharing the weight of uncertainty that all soldiers carried. For these few peaceful days, the camp settled into a new rhythm. The wounded healed. The rain held off. Even the usual tension between guards and prisoners eased slightly. Aiko helped distribute medicine and taught Sam Japanese words for common ailments. He showed her how to play checkers with a makeshift board. Laughter occasionally broke out in the mess tent, a sound so rare it made heads turn. But war never allows peace to last long. On the third day, the distant rumble of artillery served as a reminder that the conflict raged on, regardless of their small moments of humanity. That evening, a convoy of trucks rumbled into camp, bringing supplies and news from the north. With them came orders that would shatter their fragile peace and test the bonds of trust they had begun to forge. Neither Sam nor Aiko knew that by this time tomorrow, everything would change. The convoy had brought more than just supplies. It carried bad news that spread through camp like wildfire. Ambushed on North Ridge, soldiers whispered. 12 men dead. Someone knew the route. Sam was checking medical inventory when Sergeant Keenan approached, his face grim. Command wants a word, Kitteridge. Now. In the command tent, officers huddled around a map. Major Winters, a tall man with cold eyes, looked up as Sam entered. Corporal Kitteridge, he said, tell me about your relationship with the Japanese nurse. Sam stood straighter. I treat her wounds, sir. She assists with other patients. And you speak with her regularly, in Japanese? Some, sir. Basic medical terms, mostly. Major Winters exchanged looks with the other officers. The supply convoy was ambushed yesterday. The route was classified, known only to those in this camp. Sam's stomach tightened. Sir, if you're suggesting... 3 days ago, a radio transmitter was found near the prisoner area, Winters continued. Now a classified route is compromised. Command believes we have a leak. And you think it's Aiko, Nurse Tanaka? Sir, she saved an American life during the storm. Perfect cover, another officer muttered. Major Winters tapped the map. She's being transferred to Camp Bataan. More secure facility, better equipped for high-value prisoners. You'll escort her. Me, sir? You speak some Japanese? She trusts you. Less chance of trouble during transport. Winters leaned forward. And frankly, Corporal, your attachment to this prisoner has been noted. Consider this a chance to demonstrate where your loyalties lie. Outside the tent, Sam felt the weight of suspicion following him. Men who had nodded respectfully yesterday now turned away. The camp's brief harmony shattered like glass. When he told Aiko about the transfer, she received the news with quiet dignity. When we leave, she asked simply. Dawn tomorrow. It's a 3-day journey through the jungle. Sam lowered his voice. They think you're a spy, that you somehow leaked information about the convoy route. Aiko's eyes widened slightly, but her face remained composed. I am nurse, not spy, but... She sighed softly. In war, truth is first casualty. Sam spent that night packing his medical bag, making sure to include extra bandages and medicine for Aiko's still healing leg. At the last moment, he added his small Bible. Its worn cover had brought comfort through many dark nights. As he secured his pistol holster, Tommy Reeves appeared in the doorway of his tent. "Heard you're taking the Jap lady to Bataan," Tommy said. Sam nodded. "Orders." Tommy hesitated, then tossed him a small package. "Extra rations. Road gets rough past the village." He shrugged at Sam's surprised look. "She helped Jenkins during the storm. Figure that counts for something." Before dawn, Sam waited by the transport jeep. Aiko arrived flanked by 2 guards, carrying a small bundle of belongings. Her face was unreadable as she climbed into the passenger seat. As the jeep pulled away, Sergeant Keenan approached with last-minute instructions. 3 checkpoints between here and Bataan. Major Callum expects you by sundown on the 3rd day. He lowered his voice. "Watch yourself, Kitteridge. Your job is delivery, not conversion." Sam nodded and started the engine. As they drove through the camp gates, he felt the cold weight of his revolver against his hip and the heavier burden of duty against conscience. The morning mist swallowed them as they headed into the mountains, leaving the relative safety of camp behind. The jeep crawled along muddy trails barely wide enough to be called roads. Jungle pressed in from all sides, thick, green, and alive with sounds. Birds called warnings from unseen branches. Insects hummed in clouds around them. The rich smell of soil and growing things filled the air. For the first few hours, they drove in silence. Aiko sat with her hands folded in her lap, eyes forward. Sam focused on navigating the treacherous path, swerving around washouts and fallen branches from the recent storm. By mid-morning, the heat had become oppressive. Sam passed his canteen to Aiko, who accepted with a small nod. "How's your leg?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Better," she replied. "Your medicine good?" They passed a burned-out village, its charred huts standing like blackened skeletons. A few chickens scratched in the ashes. The only signs of life. Neither commented on whose soldiers might have been responsible. At noon, they stopped to rest in the shade of a massive banyan tree. Sam shared Tommy's extra rations, dried beef, hard biscuits, and canned peaches, a luxury in these parts. As they ate, the silence between them gradually softened. "Why did you become a medic?" Aiko asked. Sam considered the question. "Never much liked guns. Figured saving lives made more sense than taking them." He smiled slightly. "Also fainted at basic training the first time I fired a rifle. Sergeant said I'd better find another way to serve." This earned a small smile from Aiko, the first he'd seen. It transformed her face, making her suddenly seem younger, more human. "Your family in America," she said. "They are proud?" "I reckon so. My pa doesn't write much, but my mother sends letters every week. Prays for me, too." He glanced at her. "What about your family?" Aiko's smile faded. "I volunteer for Army to find brother, Taro. He is officer, sent to Philippines in 42. She looked down. "No word for 2 years. That why you became a nurse? To find him?" "Already nurse. But yes, thought maybe." She shook her head. "Many hospitals, many wounded, never found him." As they continued their journey, the road deteriorated further. By late afternoon, the jeep could go no farther. A landslide had taken out the trail ahead. "We'll have to go on foot until we reach the next village," Sam said, gathering essential supplies into a backpack. "Should be able to find transportation there." Aiko nodded, accepting his help as they began to pick their way along the jungle path. Despite her injured leg, she moved with determination, pausing only when the path grew too steep. As dusk approached, they made camp in a small clearing. Sam built a tiny, smokeless fire, enough for warmth but not visible from a distance. The jungle chirped and rustled around them, full of hidden life. "Sleep," Sam told her, unrolling a blanket. "I'll take first watch." Aiko settled on the blanket but didn't immediately close her eyes. Instead, she began to hum softly, a gentle melody that rose and fell like ocean waves. "What song is that?" Sam asked. "Lullaby. My grandmother sang to me as child." Aiko continued humming, the simple tune somehow making the dark jungle less threatening. Sam leaned back against a tree trunk, listening. For the first time in many months, the knot of tension in his chest loosened slightly. The song carried him back to his mother's kitchen, to simpler days before war had drawn lines between people. He fell asleep to the sound of Aiko's lullaby, the jungle strangely peaceful around them. Dawn light filtered through the canopy, dappling the forest floor with gold. Sam woke with a start, immediately reaching for his pistol. He had meant to stay awake, to keep watch. Aiko sat nearby, calmly mending a tear in her sleeve. "Good morning," she said. "You sleep long time." "You should have woken me," Sam said, embarrassed. "I was supposed to keep watch." "You needed sleep, no danger came." She offered him a handful of small purple berries. "Breakfast. Safe to eat. I know these from Japan." The berries were tart but refreshing. As they packed up their small camp, Sam noticed thin wisps of smoke rising above the trees ahead. "Might be a village," he said. "Or could be trouble?" They moved carefully through the undergrowth until they reached the edge of a clearing. A small bamboo hut stood beside a stream. Chickens pecked in the yard, and laundry hung on a line, signs of peaceful life that had become rare in wartime. As they watched, a Filipino woman emerged from the hut carrying a water jug. 3 small children trailed behind her like ducklings. "Wait here," Sam told Aiko. "Let me make sure it's safe." He stepped into the clearing with his hands visible. "Hello there," he called. "American soldier. I mean no harm." The woman turned, startled. She was middle-aged, with streaks of gray in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too much hardship. She quickly gathered the children behind her. "No trouble," Sam assured her. "Just passing through, looking for directions." The woman studied him, then nodded slowly. "I am Maria Santos," she said in accented English. "You are far from American camps, soldier." "We're heading to Camp Bataan. Landslide blocked the main road." Maria's eyes narrowed at "we." "You not alone?" Sam hesitated, then called over his shoulder. "It's all right. Come on out." Aiko emerged from the trees cautiously. At the sight of her Japanese uniform, Maria stiffened, and one of the children began to cry. "She's a nurse," Sam explained quickly. "Not a threat. She's my prisoner," he added, hating the word even as he said it. Maria looked between them, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed. "The Japanese killed my husband. Americans bombed my village." She shook her head. "But these children need eat. War already take too much." She gestured toward her hut. "Come, I have rice." Inside the simple hut, the air smelled of wood smoke and cooking rice. The 3 children, none older than 7, watched the strangers with wide eyes. Sam noticed they weren't Filipino like Maria. Their features suggested they were orphans of mixed heritage. Maria ladled rice into wooden bowls. "Not much, but we share," she said. "Thank you," Sam replied. "We won't stay long." "Road to Bataan washed out," Maria told them as they ate. 3 days on foot, through mountains." One of the children, a little girl with a torn dress, sat clutching a cloth doll. The doll's arm had come loose, dangling by a few threads. Seeing this, Aiko set down her bowl and slowly approached. The girl shrank back. Maria watched warily. Aiko knelt at a respectful distance. "May I?" she asked, pointing to the doll. The child looked to Maria, who gave a reluctant nod. With gentle hands, Aiko took a needle and thread from her small sewing kit and began repairing the doll's arm. "Dolly hurt," she said to the child. "I fix. I am nurse." As she worked, the little girl crept closer, fascination overcoming fear. When Aiko finished, she handed back the mended doll with a small bow. The child took it, a shy smile lighting her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Rain began to fall outside, drumming on the thatched roof. Maria looked at the darkening sky and then at her guests. "Not good to travel now," she said. "Trails become rivers. You stay until morning." That afternoon, as the rain continued, Aiko helped Maria prepare vegetables for dinner. Sam played a clapping game with the children that required no common language. The hut, which had seemed tense with the presence of strangers, gradually warmed with simple human connections. As darkness fell, Maria lit an oil lamp. Its golden glow filled the small space, casting long shadows on the bamboo walls. The children fell asleep on a shared mat in the corner. "They are not yours?" Sam asked quietly. Maria shook her head. "Orphans. Japanese father, Filipino mother for that one. American father, local girl for other two." Her expression softened as she looked at them. War makes them unwanted. But children just children. Sam thought about the artificial divisions of war, how easily people were sorted into neat categories of ally and enemy, when reality was far more complex. "You are kind to help enemies," Aiko said softly to Maria. The older woman's eyes were tired but clear. "Kindness costs less than vengeance," she replied. "Hate heavy to carry. I already carry too much." Later, as the rain pattered softly on the roof, Sam sat by the dying embers of the cooking fire. He found himself thinking about his father's dog-eared Bible and the passages his mother had underlined about loving enemies. In seminary, those words had seemed straightforward. In war, they became complicated. Yet in this humble hut, with its unlikely gathering of people, the ancient commandment suddenly seemed simpler than all the rules of war. Morning broke clear and bright. The storm had passed, leaving the jungle washed clean. Birds called from every direction, greeting the new day. Maria stood in her doorway as Sam and Aiko prepared to leave. She handed them a small bundle wrapped in banana leaves. "Rice cakes," she said. "For journey." Sam tried to offer her some coins in return, but she waved them away. "Money no use here. Just promise, when war ends, remember not all enemies are evil." The little girl with the mended doll peeked out from behind Maria's skirt. She held out a small carved wooden bird to Aiko, who accepted it with a deep bow, tucking it carefully into her pocket. "Thank you for fixing Dolly," the child whispered. As they walked away, Aiko glanced back at the peaceful hut. "Good woman," she said. "Strong heart." "Yes," Sam agreed. "Reminds me of folks back home. Simple kindness, even when life's hard." The trail was muddy from the rain, but passable. They walked in companionable silence for the first hour, each lost in thoughts of the widow's unexpected hospitality. By mid-morning the sun had risen higher, burning off the last wisps of mist clinging to the treetops. The jungle hummed with life. "Tell me about your home," Aiko said as they rested beside a small stream. "America?" Sam smiled, picturing the ranch where he'd grown up. "Montana. Big sky country, we call it. Mountains in the distance, plains stretching far as you can see. Our ranch isn't much. Couple 100 acres, some cattle, good horses." "Snow?" Aiko asked. "Plenty in winter. Drifts higher than the fence posts sometimes. My pa always says Montana has 2 seasons, winter and August." Sam chuckled at the memory. My mother fills the house with music when snow falls. Hymns, mostly. She plays piano at the church. Your father is farmer? Rancher. Man of few words and steady hands. Taught me to ride before I could walk proper. To respect the land and speak truth, even when it costs something. Sam skipped a stone across the water. He didn't want me to enlist. Said healing suited me better than fighting. Aiko nodded thoughtfully. Wise man, your father. What about your home? Sam asked. A shadow crossed her face. Kyoto. Very old city. My family house near garden with stone paths, maple trees that turn red in fall. She paused. Not know if still stands. Much bombing now. The simple statement held volumes of worry and loss. Sam couldn't offer false comfort, so he simply walked beside her in understanding silence. As the day progressed, they encountered American patrols twice. Each time, Sam's uniform earned quick salutes, but Aiko's presence drew hard stares and muttered comments. Sam kept her close, shielding her from the worst of it. After one particularly tense encounter, Aiko said quietly, "Not easy for you, being kind to enemy." Sam looked at her. "I stopped seeing you as the enemy some time back," he admitted. The simple truth hung between them, neither fully acknowledging its meaning. By late afternoon, they caught sight of Camp Bataan in the distance. Unlike the field hospital they'd left behind, this was a proper military installation, surrounded by barbed wire, watchtowers at each corner, and armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Sam felt Aiko tense beside him. The relative freedom of their journey was ending. Whatever fragile connection had formed between them would soon face its greatest test. "I'll speak to the commanding officer," Sam promised. "Explain you're a medical asset, not a threat." Aiko's eyes remained fixed on the camp. "In cage, bird always prisoner, no matter how kind the keeper." They approached the main gate as dusk gathered. A harsh spotlight swept over them. Guards raised rifles. "Identify yourself," a voice commanded. "Corporal Samuel Kitteridge, Medical Corps," Sam called back, escorting prisoner transfer from Field Hospital 17. The gates creaked open. They stepped into a world of sharp angles and harsher rules. The brief peace of the jungle journey evaporated in the heat of military efficiency. Camp Bataan awaited, its iron fence a stark reminder of divisions that neither kindness nor understanding could fully bridge. Inside Camp Bataan, order ruled with an iron hand. Rows of uniform buildings, spotless grounds, and soldiers who moved with precision. Everything about the place spoke of military discipline. Sam and Aiko were immediately separated. Guards escorted her to a processing area, while Sam was directed to the command office. Major Callum sat behind a desk piled with paperwork, his silver hair cropped close to his skull, his uniform immaculate despite the tropical heat. He did not invite Sam to sit. "Corporal Kitteridge," he said, reviewing the transfer papers. "You're 2 days late." "Landslide blocked the main road, sir. We had to go on foot through the jungle." "We?" Major Callum's eyebrows rose. Rather familiar term for a prisoner escort. Sam stood straighter. "Sir, about Nurse Tanaka." "The female spy, you mean?" "She's not a spy, sir. She's a trained nurse who saved an American life during the storm. She's been invaluable in treating both our men and prisoners." Callum leaned back, studying Sam with cold eyes. According to this report, she was suspected of leaking information that led to an ambush. 12 American boys dead. "No evidence connects her to that, sir." "No evidence clears her either." Callum shuffled papers. "You were given this assignment to demonstrate your loyalty, Corporal. Yet here you are, defending an enemy combatant." Sam chose his next words carefully. "I'm defending an asset, sir. With your permission, I'd like to request that she be allowed to work in the infirmary here. Her medical skills—" "Camp Bataan isn't some field hospital running on prayers and bandages," Callum interrupted. "We have proper doctors, proper protocols." His expression hardened. "But I'll consider your request, conditionally. She can work in the infirmary under strict supervision. One wrong whisper, one suspicious move, and she swings. Clear?" "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet, Corporal. You'll be held personally responsible for her conduct. If she proves to be the spy command suspects, your career ends with her. Dismissed." Outside, Sam exhaled slowly, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. He made his way to the prisoners' quarters, a long, low building separated from the main camp by a double fence, topped with barbed wire. A guard led him to where Aiko had been assigned. She sat on a bare cot, one among many in the sparse women's section. When she saw Sam, relief flashed across her face, quickly concealed. "You'll be working in the infirmary," he told her. "I spoke with Major Callum." "Thank you," she said softly. "But why you help me still? Is dangerous for you?" Sam didn't have a simple answer. "Get some rest. Report to the infirmary at 0600 tomorrow." As he turned to leave, he noticed her using a small knife to cut her tattered uniform. "What are you doing?" "Make new clothes," she replied, her fingers working quickly. "Nurse clothes, not soldier. New place, new purpose." Sam watched as she transformed the Imperial Army uniform into a simple smock. The symbolism wasn't lost on him, shedding one identity to embrace another, finding purpose in service rather than conflict. That night, in his assigned quarters, Sam lay awake listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Camp Baton, guards calling to each other, the distant hum of generators, occasional shouts from the prisoner compound. He thought of Aiko, alone among strangers, creating something new from the remnants of war. Her quiet dignity moved him in ways he couldn't fully explain. 5 days passed in the rigid routine of Camp Baton. Each morning, Sam escorted Aiko from the prisoners' quarters to the infirmary. Each evening, he returned her to confinement. Between those moments, they worked side by side, treating the sick and wounded. The camp's head doctor, a harried man named Phillips, had initially objected to a Japanese nurse assisting. But when a dozen new malaria cases arrived in one day, pragmatism won out over prejudice. "She knows what she's doing," he admitted grudgingly to Sam after watching Aiko skillfully insert an IV. "Where did she train?" "Imperial Medical School in Tokyo, I believe," Sam replied. "She was a nurse before the war." Phillips grunted. "Well, fever doesn't care what uniform you wear." The malaria outbreak spread rapidly, striking both prisoners and American soldiers. The infirmary filled, beyond capacity. Cots lined the hallways. Medical staff worked around the clock, fighting exhaustion as they fought the disease. Through endless hours, Sam and Aiko moved from patient to patient. They developed a rhythm, anticipating each other's needs without words. A shared canteen of water. A fresh towel passed without asking. Small kindnesses that made the grueling work bearable. During rare quiet moments, their conversations grew deeper. Aiko told Sam about cherry blossoms in Kyoto, about the small clinic where she'd first learned to bandage wounds, about her brother's dream of becoming a poet before duty called him to war. Sam shared stories of Montana summers, fishing in clear mountain streams, and his mother's Christmas cookies that somehow tasted of love itself. He spoke of his brief time in seminary before deciding that practical healing suited him better than preaching. One night, as they tended to a young soldier delirious with fever, Sam noticed Aiko swaying slightly on her feet. "When did you last rest?" he asked. "I am fine," she insisted, but her face was drawn with exhaustion. "You're no good to patients if you collapse," he told her gently. "Take an hour. I'll come get you if we need you." She hesitated, then nodded. 1 hour only. When Sam checked the small storage room where she had gone to rest, he found her deeply asleep on a pile of folded blankets. He didn't have the heart to wake her. 2 hours later, Tommy Reeves appeared in the doorway of the infirmary. He had arrived at Camp Baton with a group of transferred medical staff. "Heard you were still nursemaiding your Japanese friend," Tommy said, handing Sam a fresh cup of coffee. Sam accepted the coffee gratefully. "She's a good nurse, Tommy. Saved more lives this week than I can count." Tommy leaned against the wall, watching patients moan in their fever dreams. "You know what they're saying about you two? That you'll be preaching sermons to her soon." "Let them talk," Sam said tiredly. "God doesn't pick sides in who deserves compassion." When Aiko returned, Tommy nodded to her without hostility, a small victory in itself. That night, after the worst cases had stabilized, Sam found Aiko sitting alone outside the infirmary. The tropical moon hung low and full, casting silver light across the compound. Despite the strict rules, no guard had the heart to send her back to the prisoners' quarters after 18 hours of saving lives. Sam sat beside her on the wooden steps. Without comment, he opened his small Bible and began to read aloud, his voice soft in the humid night. "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust." The familiar words of Psalm 91 flowed into the darkness. Sam had memorized them long ago, but reading them here, now, they felt newly relevant, a promise of protection in a world torn apart by violence. Aiko listened, her eyes half closed with exhaustion. "Your God is gentle," she murmured sleepily. "Not like gods of war." "Same God," Sam replied, "just different ways of hearing." She didn't answer. Her head had drooped against the railing, sleep finally claiming her. Sam carefully placed his handkerchief beneath her cheek as a makeshift pillow and continued reading softly, a shield of words against the night. Inside the infirmary, fever patients moaned. Beyond the fence, the war continued its deadly course. But on those steps, under a Filipino moon, something fragile and human held its ground against the tide of conflict. A week passed as the malaria outbreak slowly came under control. The endless hours in the infirmary had earned Aiko a measure of respect from the medical staff. Even the guards nodded to her now, their earlier suspicion softened by watching her tireless care for American patients. One moonless night, Sam made his final rounds through the infirmary. Most patients slept peacefully, their fevers broken. As he passed an open window, voices drifted from the Japanese officers' section of the prisoner compound. Sam paused. His Japanese was limited, but he recognized a few words. Midnight, guard, wire. The urgent tone made him listen closer. Moving quietly to the window, he strained to hear more. The voices grew louder, then suddenly hushed as footsteps approached. Sam slipped away, troubled by what little he had understood. The next morning he observed the Japanese prisoners with new awareness. Small groups gathered, then broke apart when guards approached. Messages passed in folded scraps of paper. Eyes tracked the movements of the watchtower guards. Something was brewing. Sam felt sure of it. That afternoon, as Aiko helped him change bandages, he asked carefully, "Have you noticed anything strange among the other Japanese prisoners?" She stiffened, almost imperceptibly, then continued working. "What do you mean?" "Just unusual behavior, whispering, secret meetings." Aiko kept her eyes on her task. "I am nurse, not part of military planning." "But you hear things," Sam pressed. "Things that might put people in danger?" She finally looked up, her expression guarded. "Why you ask this?" Sam lowered his voice. "I heard voices last night, Talk of midnight, guards, the wire fence. Fear flickered in Aiko's eyes before she masked it. Maybe just talk. Prisoners always dream of home. Is it just talk? Sam held her gaze. People could get hurt, Aiko. Both sides. She broke eye contact. I must check other patients, she said, moving away quickly. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. He paced his small quarters, torn between duty and trust. If there was an escape attempt, people would die. Desperate prisoners facing guards with machine guns. But reporting suspicions meant betraying Aiko's confidence, perhaps even placing her in danger. Through his window, he could see the prisoner compound. Dark shapes moved in Thor, shadows. A guard yawned at his post, unsuspecting. In the distance, a dog barked twice, then fell silent. Sam reached for his Bible, seeking guidance in its worn pages. His fingers found a familiar passage. Blessed are the peacemakers. The words seemed to mock him now. How did one make peace in the middle of war? Across the compound, Aiko too lay awake. She stared at the stars visible through a small window, thinking of her brother Taro. Was he still alive somewhere? What would he think of her now, working alongside Americans? The thought made her chest ache with longing and doubt. She whispered his name into the darkness, a prayer carried on the night breeze. Dawn found her still awake, her decision made. Morning light streamed through the infirmary windows, highlighting dust motes dancing in the air. Camp Bataan hummed with activity, the changing of guards, breakfast call, work details forming. An ordinary day, except for the tension Sam felt building like a storm. Aiko arrived for her shift, looking pale. When no one was watching, she touched Sam's arm. Must speak with you, she whispered. Private. They found a moment alone in the supply closet. Aiko's hands trembled as she carefully closed the door. There is plan, she said softly, her voice barely audible. Tonight. Midnight. 15 officers will escape. They have made knife from metal scraps. Sam exhaled slowly. How do you know this? Lieutenant Hideki told me. He wants me to join them. Her eyes met Sam's. They will kill guard at South Fence, others ready to die as distraction. The quiet words carried the weight of lives in balance. Sam tried to keep his voice steady. Why are you telling me this? Tears gathered in Aiko's eyes but didn't fall. Because guard has wife, children, because dying brings more dying, never peace. She drew a shaky breath. Because I cannot watch more people die when I can stop it. In that moment, Sam understood the price she was paying. By revealing the plot, she was betraying her countrymen, becoming, in their eyes, a traitor to Japan. We have to tell Major Callum, he said gently. Aiko nodded, but fear showed plainly on her face. What will happen to me after? Sam wished he could promise protection, but war made liars of honest men. I don't know, he admitted, but doing the right thing has to count for something. Together they walked to the command office. With each step, Aiko seemed to grow smaller, as if physically burdened by her choice. Sam stayed close beside her, their shoulders nearly touching, a silent promise of support. Major Callum listened to their report with narrowed eyes. Twice he interrupted to demand specifics: names, timing, weapons. Aiko answered everything without hesitation, her voice growing steadier as she committed fully to her decision. When she finished, Callum nodded curtly. If this intelligence is accurate, you've prevented a bloodbath. He studied her with new assessment. Though, your countrymen will see it differently. I know, Aiko whispered. Return to your duties, Callum told them. Speak of this to no one. We'll handle it from here. That evening, Sam and Aiko worked side by side in the infirmary, pretending nothing had changed. But everything had. Guards quietly doubled at the south fence. Weapons were checked and readied. The camp held its breath, waiting for midnight. When it came, the response was swift and silent. Japanese officers were removed from their barracks one by one. The homemade knife was found, along with a crude map of guard positions. There was no violence, no alarm, just the quiet efficiency of a prevented disaster. By morning, word had spread through camp. No one knew who had revealed the plot, but suspicious eyes turned toward the Japanese nurse who worked with the American medic. Japanese prisoners moved away when Aiko approached. Conversations stopped. One man spat on the ground near her feet. American soldiers were equally suspicious of Sam. Fraternizing with the enemy was whispered behind his back. Friends grew distant, conversations awkward. After their shift ended, Sam found Aiko sitting alone behind the infirmary, her face buried in her hands. "You all right?" he asked, sitting beside her on an empty crate. She looked up, her eyes red but dry. "They hate me now. Both sides." "Not everyone. My people call me traitor. Your people never trust me." She sighed deeply. Always alone between. Sam thought carefully before speaking. "My father once told me something I didn't understand until now. He said, 'Doing right will never win a medal, but it wins peace.'" He met her gaze. "What you did saved lives on both sides. That counts for more than approval." Aiko smiled faintly through unshed tears. "Your father is wise, man." As they sat together in the lengthening shadows, a fragile understanding grew between them. Two people who had chosen conscience over sides, humanity over war, and would bear the consequences together. 3 weeks passed. The failed escape attempt faded from daily conversation, though its effects lingered. Aiko remained isolated from other Japanese prisoners, working longer hours in the infirmary to avoid their cold stares and whispered insults. Sam faced his own form of exile. Once friendly card games no longer included invitations. Conversations in the mess tent faltered when he approached. Only Tommy Reeves still sat with him regularly, shrugging off others' disapproval. "Never much cared what folks think," Tommy told him over coffee one morning. "Figure you did what you thought was right." On a humid Tuesday afternoon, excitement rippled through camp. A mail runner had arrived with the first letters in over a month. Men gathered eagerly, hungry for news from home. To Sam's surprise, the runner handed him a thick envelope. "From Montana," the man said, moving on to the next name. Sam stared at the familiar handwriting, his mother's careful script. He waited until his shift ended before finding a quiet spot to read it. The pages smelled faintly of home, lavender sachet and wood smoke. His mother's words flowed across the paper, bringing Montana to this distant jungle. "My dearest Samuel, the ranch stands strong despite troubles. Your father's arthritis worsens, but he won't slow down. Stubborn as always. The barn needs a new roof before winter. Your dog Rusty still sleeps by the door, waiting for your return. Drought has been hard. Many neighbors selling cattle cheap. Your father refused, saying, 'The Lord provides rain in his time.' Sure enough, last week brought 3 days of gentle showers. The pastures are greening again. Church prays for you every Sunday. Pastor Hall asks after you specially. Remember when you helped him build that crooked birdhouse? It still hangs in the churchyard, home to a family of wrens. I worry for you, my boy. But I trust God holds you in his hand, even in war's darkness. Remember what your grandfather always said. Stars shine brightest on the blackest nights. Come home safe to us. Until then, I wrap you in prayer every night. All my love, Mother P.S. I've enclosed a packet of wildflower seeds from our meadow. Plant them where you are. A piece of Montana to grow wherever you stand. Sam carefully folded the letter, his throat tight with longing for home. The small paper packet of seeds rested in his palm, a mother's perfect gift. Later that evening, he found Aiko in the quiet corner of the infirmary where she often worked alone, rolling bandages. "Got a letter from home," he said, sitting across from her. "Would you like to read it?" She looked surprised. "Private family words." "Friends share," Sam said simply, holding out the pages. Aiko took the letter carefully, as if handling something precious. She read slowly, sometimes asking Sam to explain words or references. Her fingers traced his mother's handwriting with gentle respect. "Your mother has kind heart," she said when she finished. "I see where you get your goodness." "She'd like you," Sam replied. "She believes people are people, no matter where they're born." On impulse, he handed Aiko the small packet of seeds. "She sent these. Wildflowers from our ranch. I thought maybe you might want to plant some. A piece of Montana." Aiko's eyes widened. She accepted the gift with both hands and a small bow. "Thank you. I will keep safe." The next day, to Sam's surprise, Aiko approached him with a folded piece of paper. "I write to your mother," she explained shyly. "Can you send when next mail goes?" Sam was deeply moved by the gesture. "Of course." That night, he read Aiko's letter, written in careful, precise English. "Dear Mrs. Kitteridge, I am nurse who works with your son. Your letter brings much comfort to him. I wish to thank you for raising such good man. Sam helps many people here, both American and Japanese. He shows kindness when others show hate. This is rare, gift in war. I hope one day Montana wildflowers grow in Japan too. Maybe sign that peace is possible. Please know your son brings honor to your family and hope to dark places. Respectfully, Aiko Tanaka. Sam sealed the letter to send with the next mail runner, adding it to his own reply home. He didn't mention Aiko in his letter. Military censors would question such friendship. But he described a Japanese nurse who embodied courage and compassion. His mother would understand. As weeks passed, Aiko and Sam developed a routine. During breaks, they would sit outside the infirmary, talking of life after the war. Sam described the ranch he hoped to expand, perhaps adding a small clinic for local families without doctors nearby. Aiko spoke of returning to her hometown to help rebuild, to replant gardens where bombs had scarred the earth. "Maybe one day you visit Montana," Sam suggested once. "See those wildflowers yourself." Aiko smiled at the impossible dream. "Maybe one day," she agreed, both knowing how unlikely it was. The war still raged beyond camp borders. Occasional bombing raids lit the horizon. New wounded arrived regularly. But within their fragile friendship, Sam and Aiko had created a small pocket of peace. A tiny model of what could be. The message arrived without warning one hot afternoon. Major Callum summoned Sam to headquarters, his face unusually grave. "Orders from command," he announced without preamble. "A prisoner exchange has been arranged with the Japanese, medical personnel primarily, a humanitarian gesture." He slid a paper across his desk. "Nurse Tanaka is on the list. She leaves tomorrow." Sam stared at the document, feeling as if the floor had suddenly shifted beneath him. "Tomorrow, sir?" 0800 hours. Transport to Manila, then by ship to neutral waters for the exchange. Callum studied Sam's face. "This is good news, Corporal. She's going home." Home. The word should have brought relief, but Sam felt only a hollow ache in his chest. After all they'd shared, all they'd weathered together, suddenly over. "Does she know yet?" he asked. Callum shook his head. "I thought you might want to tell her." Sam found Aiko in the supply room, counting medicine bottles, Her face lit with a smile when she saw him, a smile that faded quickly as she registered his expression. "What is wrong?" she asked. Sam took a deep breath. "You're going home, Aiko. Prisoner exchange. Transport leaves tomorrow morning." She froze, the bottle in her hand forgotten. "Home? Japan?" "Yes. You'll be repatriated. Returned to your people." A storm of emotions crossed her face: joy, disbelief, fear, and something else Sam couldn't name. She set down the bottle carefully, her hands suddenly unsteady. "I never thought," she began, then stopped. "So sudden." "I know." Sam tried to sound happy for her. "But it's good news. You'll be safe. Away from the war, maybe." Aiko nodded slowly. "Yes. Good news." She looked around the small supply room as if seeing it for the first time. So much to do before morning. That evening, as darkness fell over Camp Bataan, Sam and Aiko said their goodbyes in the quiet space behind the infirmary. The air hung heavy with unspoken words. "I brought something for you," Sam said, holding out a small package wrapped in cloth. "For the journey." Aiko unwrapped it carefully. Inside lay Sam's worn Bible, its leather cover softened by years of handling. "Sam, no, this is yours," she protested. "From your home." "That's why I want you to have it," he said softly. "Something to remember. To remember our friendship." She traced the faded gold letters on the cover. "Thank you." From her pocket, she withdrew the small wooden bird the orphan child had given her. "For you. So you remember too." They sat in silence as stars appeared above the camp. So much to say, yet words seemed inadequate. Finally, Sam spoke. "Write when you can. After the war. Let me know you're all right." "I will try." Aiko's voice was barely audible. "War makes many promises hard to keep." "Kitteridge," a voice called from the darkness. "Major wants you." Sam rose reluctantly. "I'll be at the transport tomorrow, to see you off." Aiko nodded, unable to speak. Gray clouds hung low the next morning as prisoners selected for exchange gathered by the main gate. Military trucks waited, engines idling. Armed guards stood at attention, faces impassive. Sam searched the crowd until he spotted Aiko, standing slightly apart from the other Japanese. She wore her makeshift nurse's smock, her few possessions tied in a small bundle. Sam's Bible was clutched tightly in her hands. Tommy appeared at Sam's side. "Came to say goodbye to your nurse," he said, not unkindly. "She did good work here." "Yes, she did." Sam's throat felt tight. They approached Aiko together. Tommy surprised Sam by extending his hand to her. "Safe journey," he said simply. Aiko bowed slightly, then shook his hand. "Thank you for kindness." "All aboard," shouted the transport officer. "Move out in 2 minutes." Sam struggled to find the right words as Aiko turned to him. "Take care of yourself," he said finally. "Stay safe." She nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You also, Sam Kitteridge. God keep you." Before Sam could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. A Japanese officer, Lieutenant Hideki, whose escape plan Aiko had revealed, broke free from the line and charged toward her. "Traitor!" he shouted in Japanese. "Betrayer!" He struck her hard across the face before guards could intervene. Aiko fell backward, her head hitting the edge of the truck with a sickening thud. The Bible flew from her hands, landing in the dust. "Aiko!" Sam fought his way through the sudden chaos, dropping to his knees beside her still form. Blood pooled beneath her head, bright red against the dirt. Guards restrained Hideki, dragging him away. Medical staff rushed forward. Sam cradled Aiko's head gently, calling her name. Her eyelids fluttered. "Sam," she whispered, her voice faint. Still, hurts when I sit. A ghost of their first meeting, an attempt at humor even now. Sam held her hand as the medical team lifted her onto a stretcher. "You'll be all right," he promised, running alongside as they carried her to the infirmary. "You'll be all right." But blood soaked through the bandage they pressed to her head, and her skin had gone gray. The ship's horn wailed in the harbor, calling for departure. The last Sam saw of Aiko, she lay unconscious as doctors worked frantically to save her. A corpsman pushed him firmly from the room. "Let them work, Kitteridge," he said. "Nothing you can do now." Outside, rain began to fall. Sam stood alone in the downpour, Aiko's small wooden bird clutched in his palm, praying to a god who seemed very far away. 6 months passed. The war ground toward its bitter end. Islands fell, cities burned, men died on beaches with unfamiliar names. Sam moved with the medical corps from island to island, treating wounds that seemed endless. His letters home grew shorter, his sleep troubled by dreams. In each new camp, he searched for news of prisoner exchanges, hospital ships, survivors. Of Aiko, he heard nothing. The ship carrying the prisoners had departed as scheduled that day, he learned. Whether she had been on it, whether she had survived her injury, no one could tell him. Records were lost, officers transferred. War's chaos swallowed individual stories like stones dropped in the ocean. When Japan finally surrendered, Sam stood with other weary soldiers as the news spread. Men cheered and fired rifles into the air. Sam removed his helmet quietly, remembering a gentle voice saying, "War makes many promises hard to keep." In October 1945, Sam boarded a troop ship in Manila Harbor, bound for San Francisco. The deck was crowded with soldiers eager for home, their faces turned toward America with longing. Sam found a quiet corner by the railing, watching the Philippines fade into the horizon. He'd grown leaner, quieter in the month since Bataan. The eager young medic who'd arrived in the Pacific had been replaced by a man who'd seen too much suffering to speak of it easily. "Going home, Kitteridge," Tommy Reeves said, joining him at the rail. Tommy, too, had changed. A jagged scar ran from his temple to his jaw, a souvenir from Okinawa. "Seems so," Sam replied. "Heard anything? About your nurse?" Sam shook his head. "Asked everywhere. The Red Cross had a report. The ship she was supposed to be on went down in a typhoon. No confirmed survivors." He pulled the small wooden bird from his pocket, rubbing its smooth wings with his thumb. "But without a name on a casualty list." "You still hope," Tommy finished for him. "Feels foolish after all this time." Tommy clasped his shoulder briefly. "Hope's never foolish. Just painful sometimes." During the long voyage home, Sam composed a letter to his mother, trying to prepare her for the changed man returning to Montana. "Dear Mother, we're heading home at last. Should reach Montana by Thanksgiving if connections go smoothly. I'm not the same boy who left. Some changes you'll see, some you won't. Please give Pa my thanks for teaching me that doing right matters more than doing what's easy. That lesson saved lives out here, though it cost plenty too. I tried to do right, Mother. I hope heaven counts mercy as faithfulness, because I couldn't always follow both. Give Rusty a pat for me. Tell him I kept my promise to come back. Your loving son, Sam." The troop ship docked in San Francisco on a crisp November morning. The Golden Gate Bridge stood proud against blue sky as bands played and crowds cheered the returning heroes. Sam disembarked slowly, the weight of his duffel bag nothing compared to the memories he carried. America seemed impossibly clean, impossibly whole after the shattered landscapes of war. Streets without craters, buildings with glass in every window, children who didn't flinch at loud noises. In a train station cafe, Sam ordered coffee. Real coffee, not the weak camp brew he'd grown used to. As he waited, He overheard two businessmen discussing rebuilding contracts in Japan. Kyoto was largely spared, one said. Strategic decision. They'll need medical personnel there for the occupation forces. Sam's hand froze halfway to his cup. Kyoto, Aiko's hometown, spared the bombing that had devastated so many Japanese cities. If she had survived somehow, if she had made it home. But it was a fool's hope, built on coincidence and longing. The war had taught Sam that happy endings were rare commodities, rationed as strictly as medicine and ammunition. He boarded the train to Montana that afternoon, settling into a seat by the window. As the city gave way to open country, he watched golden fields roll past, looking more like home with each mile. In his pocket, the small wooden bird nestled beside his mother's letters. In his duffel, carefully wrapped in clean shirts, lay a small packet of seeds, wildflowers from Montana, saved for a garden that would likely never be planted. The train whistle echoed across Bear Creek Valley, announcing its arrival to the small Montana town. Sam gathered his duffel bag and stood by the door, watching familiar landscapes slide past the window. Rolling hills, pine forests in the distance, the crooked windmill at the Peterson place. As the train slowed at the small wooden station, Sam saw her, his mother, Martha Kitteridge, standing straight as a fence post despite her 60 years. Her gray hair was pinned neatly beneath a Sunday hat, her best dress pressed for the occasion. Even from a distance, Sam could see she'd been crying. He stepped down onto Montana soil for the first time in 3 years. For a moment, he just stood there, letting the familiar air fill his lungs, crisp with approaching winter, scented with pine and prairie, grass. "Samuel," his mother whispered, and then she was in his arms. He held her carefully, surprised to find her smaller than he remembered, as if the long months of worry had worn away at her substance. "I'm home, Ma," he said, his voice rough with emotion. She pulled back to study his face. Her fingers traced new lines around his eyes, the small scar on his chin from a piece of shrapnel. "Yes," she said softly. "Most of you, anyway." The simple understanding in her words loosed something tight in Sam's chest. His mother had always seen clearly. They drove home in the old farm truck, bouncing over rutted dirt roads. Martha pointed out changes. The Wilsons' place sold after their boy didn't come home from Normandy, the new teacher at the schoolhouse, the church steeple repaired after last winter's storm. Sam listened, trying to connect with this peaceful world that had continued without him. It seemed both achingly familiar and strangely distant, like a well-loved book read long ago. The ranch came into view as they crested the last hill. A modest 2-story house, weathered barn, and scattered outbuildings nestled in a valley of golden grass. Half the fence along the east pasture had collapsed. The barn roof sagged visibly on one side. Fields that should have been plowed for winter lay untended. "Pa's arthritis," Martha explained, following his gaze. "Couldn't keep up. Hired hands all went to war or factory jobs." "Where is he?" Sam asked, not seeing his father's familiar figure. "Down by the creek, most likely. Goes there to think these days. Says the water talks sense to him." They unloaded Sam's few possessions in his old bedroom, preserved exactly as he'd left it. High school pennant on the wall, bookshelf filled with adventure novels and medical texts, the uneven desk he and his father had built together. "Get settled," Martha told him. "Supper at 6. Pastor Hall's coming by? Wanted to welcome you special?" Alone, Sam sat on his childhood bed, feeling its familiar sag. The room seemed smaller than he remembered, the ceiling lower. Or perhaps he had grown in ways that had nothing to do with height. He unpacked slowly, uniforms he hoped never to wear again, letters from home read so often they were falling apart, the small wooden bird that had become a talisman of sorts. He placed it carefully on the windowsill, where morning light would catch its carved wings. Following the sound of running water, Sam found his father by the creek that marked the western boundary of their land. Daniel Kitteridge sat on a fallen log, his gnarled hands resting on a walking stick. His once broad shoulders had shrunk, but his back remained straight as the pine trees on the ridge. Sam approached quietly, not wanting to startle him. "Pa?" Daniel looked up, his weathered face breaking into a smile that erased years of worry. "Son." He didn't rise. His arthritic knees wouldn't allow it, but held out a hand that Sam grasped firmly. "Creek's running clear," Sam said, falling back on the comfortable talk of ranchers, weather, water, land. "Been a dry fall, but she never fails us." Daniel patted the log beside him. "Sit a spell. Tell me what you can." Sam sat, listening to the familiar gurgle of water over stones. Words came easier here, away from walls and ceilings. He told his father about the field hospital, the endless work of patching broken men, the lessons learned about healing that no book had taught him. He didn't speak of Iko directly. Some stories needed more time, but described a nurse who had shown him that mercy knew no borders. Daniel listened without interruption, his eyes on the moving water. "Reckon you saw the ranch," he said when Sam fell silent. "Gone to seed some." "Nothing that can't be fixed," Sam assured him. "Might need more than 2 old men to do it. Good thing I'm neither old nor easily scared off." Daniel's laugh was rusty but genuine. "Welcome home, son." That evening, Pastor Hall joined them for supper. Fried chicken and biscuits Martha had spent all afternoon preparing. The elderly minister had baptized Sam as a baby and later counseled him through his brief, uncertain calling to the seminary. "The prodigal returns," Hall said warmly, gripping Sam's hand. "Though in your case, it was duty, not waywardness, that took you from us." Over coffee and Martha's apple pie, talk turned to town news. The pastor spoke carefully, but Sam caught the sidelong glances, the hesitations. "Best say it plain, Pastor," he finally said. "What are folks saying about me?" Hall sighed. "War gossip travels, even to small towns. Some soldiers passing through mentioned a medic named Kitteridge, who went native with the enemy. People talk, you know how it is." "I know." "Most don't believe it, of course. Your family's respected here." "But some do believe it," Sam finished for him. Hall nodded reluctantly. "Fear makes people forget their Christian charity sometimes. Give them time." Later that night, Sam stood on the porch watching stars appear in the vast Montana sky. He could name the constellations in both English and Japanese now, one of many small pieces of knowledge exchanged during long nights in the infirmary. In the barn, he found a lantern and lit it, illuminating the familiar space now fallen into disrepair. Tools rusted on hooks. Hay grew sparse in the loft. His father's prized stallion was gone, sold to pay taxes, Martha had explained softly. Sam knelt in an empty stall, smelling the sweet remnants of hay and horse. He hadn't prayed properly in months, not since watching Iko carried bleeding into the infirmary. Now, surrounded by the humble wreckage of his father's life work, words finally came. "Lord," he whispered, "I'm home, but not whole. Help me find purpose again. Show me how to rebuild." As if in answer, rain began to patter on the barn roof. Gentle at first, then steadier. The first real rain in months, Martha would say later, a blessing on parched ground. Sam stood listening to the rhythm, feeling something tight in his chest begin to loosen. Outside, dry earth drank deep, preparing for renewal. Morning light filtered through the cracks between weathered barn boards, painting golden stripes across the dusty floor. Sam stood in the old tack room, mentally measuring the space, Horse bridles still hung from pegs along one wall. Saddles rested on wooden stands, their leather cracked from disuse. "Planning to ride, son?" Daniel Kitteridge asked, leaning on his cane in the doorway. "Thinking of another use for this room," Sam replied. "The nearest doctor's 30 miles away in Riverdale. Lots of ranchers around here doing without proper care." Daniel raised his eyebrows. "A clinic? Here?" "Just a small one. Somewhere folks could come for basic treatment without making the long trip to town." Sam ran his hand along the sturdy pine shelving. "Wouldn't take much to clean it up. Good ventilation. Solid floor." His father studied him with thoughtful eyes. "War taught you to make do with what's available, I reckon." "That it did." Sam smiled faintly. "Treated men in rice paddies, jungle clearings, abandoned huts. This would be a palace by comparison." Daniel nodded slowly. "Your mother will say it's the Lord's doing, bringing you home with healing in your hands when the community needs it most." He looked around the room with new eyes. "Might need more light. Could put in another window on the south wall." "I was thinking the same thing." For the first time since coming home, Sam felt a spark of genuine excitement. Here was something he could do. Something needed. Something healing. The next day, he began clearing out the tack room, working from dawn until dusk. Martha brought him lunch, watching as he scrubbed the wooden floor with strong lye soap. "Your hands are blistered," she observed. "You're pushing too hard." "Feels good to work," Sam replied, not slowing. "To build something instead of just patching broken pieces." "Is that what you did over there? Patch broken pieces?" Sam sat back on his heels. "Sometimes it felt that way. So much destruction. Never enough time to heal properly before the next battle, the next wave of wounded." Martha knelt beside him, her knees creaking. She took the scrub brush from his raw hands. "The healing you're looking for. It's not just for others, is it?" Sam met his mother's knowing gaze. "No, Ma. I reckon it's not." She nodded and began scrubbing alongside him. "Then let's build you a proper clinic." Word spread quickly through the small community. On Saturday morning, Sam looked up from replacing rotted floorboards to find 3 pickup trucks pulling into the ranch yard. Neighbors he'd known all his life climbed out, carrying tools and lumber. "Heard you're fixing up a doctor place," said Bill Jenkins, whose father had been Daniel's closest friend. "Figure we could lend a hand." By sundown, the transformation was well underway. The men installed a new window that flooded the room with light. They built sturdy cabinets and a simple examination table. One man brought a wood stove salvaged from his father's abandoned homestead. "For winter," he explained gruffly. "Gets mighty cold out here." Pastor Hall arrived with his wife, who carried a large basket covered with a checkered cloth. "The ladies of the church send these," she said, unveiling neatly folded white sheets and pillowcases. "Every healing place needs clean linens." Sam was deeply moved by the community's response. Not everyone had come. Some still whispered about his war disgrace, but enough had shown support to make the work go quickly. As twilight deepened into night, Sam stood alone in the nearly finished clinic. Clean windows gleamed in the lamplight. Fresh paint brightened the walls. Simple shelves waited for medicine and supplies. He placed his medical bag on the small desk, the tangible connection between his past and future. The next day, he rode into town to post a notice on the general store bulletin board. Kitteridge Ranch Clinic. Basic medical care available. No fee for those who can't pay. Tuesdays and Thursdays, sunrise to sunset emergencies anytime below. He added his father's wisdom. Healing hands serve all neighbors. Beneath the notice, he pinned a small Red Cross flag he'd carried through the Pacific, a symbol recognized around the world. Sam was examining the store's limited selection of medical supplies when he noticed the whispers. Two men by the counter fell silent as he approached. A woman pulled her child closer. The storekeeper, Ed Simmons, looked uncomfortable but managed a nod. "Need anything special ordered for your clinic, Sam? Got a supplier in Billings makes regular runs?" "Much obliged, Ed. Could use disinfectant, bandages, basic medicines. Nothing fancy." "I'll see what I can do." Ed lowered his voice. "Don't mind the talk. Most folks are glad to have someone with medical training nearby. Just need time to adjust to changes." Walking back to his horse, Sam passed the town's small diner. Through the window, he saw a Red Cross poster, the same organization he'd worked alongside throughout the war. The image showed nurses caring for wounded soldiers, with the words, "Mercy knows no borders," printed below. The phrase struck him like a physical blow. How many times had Aiko demonstrated that very truth? He remembered her gentle hands tending American soldiers who had, days earlier, called her enemy, her quiet voice saying, "Same blood." Back at the ranch, Sam set a wooden chair near the clinic's new window. Afternoon sunlight warmed the room as he looked out over the Montana plains stretching to distant mountains. "Still hurts when I sit, too," he murmured, half smiling at the memory. The pain was different now, not physical, but a hollow ache for all that was lost. Yet for the first time since coming home, he felt something like peace. Within a week, the clinic saw its first patient, 8-year-old Jimmy Wilson with a fishhook caught in his thumb. The boy's father stood awkwardly in the doorway as Sam worked, gentle and sure. "Heard you patched up soldiers in the Pacific," Mr. Wilson said, watching Sam clean and bandage his son's thumb. "That's right. My brother was at Guadalcanal. Never came home." Sam looked up, meeting the man's questioning gaze directly. "I'm sorry for your loss, sir. Brave men died on all sides." Wilson nodded slowly. "Reckon that's true enough." He handed Sam a jar of home-canned peaches as they left. "For your trouble." By month's end, the clinic had treated 15 patients, everything from cuts and burns to Mrs. Peterson's chronic arthritis. Sam ordered medicines from Billings, using his own savings. He kept careful records in a leather-bound ledger, charging only what each family could afford, often accepting payment in eggs, firewood, or homemade bread. Each evening, he sat in the chair by the window and wrote in his journal. Observations about patients, notes on treatments, occasional memories of techniques learned in field hospitals across the Pacific. Sometimes he found himself writing about Aiko, her steady hands, her quiet courage, the way she'd taught him to use certain herbs for pain relief. On those pages, she remained alive, preserved in ink and memory when hope had faded for any other outcome. Winter descended on Montana with icy determination. Snow blanketed the ranch, transforming familiar landscapes into smooth, white hills. The creek froze solid. Breath clouded in the cold air. The clinic wood stove became the heart of the small room, radiating welcome warmth to chilled patients. Sam had grown a beard that his mother said made him look like his grandfather. His hands, once blistered from unaccustomed ranch work, had toughened again. He split his days between helping his father with winter ranch chores and tending to the steady stream of patients who braved snow-covered roads to reach his clinic. "You're doing good work," Pastor Hall told him after Sunday service. "Talk has mostly died down. People judge by what they see, and they see a man serving his community." One bitter January morning, Sam trudged through knee-deep snow to check on a newborn calf in the barn. The early sun cast long blue shadows across the pristine white landscape. As he approached the ranch house afterward, he noticed his mother waving urgently from the porch. "Telegram," she called, her voice tight with emotion. Just arrived. Sam's heart jumped painfully. Telegrams rarely brought good news. Inside the warm kitchen, Martha handed him the yellow paper with trembling hands. It's from the Red Cross. Sam unfolded it with fingers suddenly clumsy from more than cold. Information received. Stop nurse Aiko Tanaka survived. Stop recovering Tokyo Hospital. Stop serving rehabilitation under Allied supervision. Stop requests permission volunteer. America stop contact Red Cross office. Billings for details. Stop. The room seemed to tilt around him. Sam gripped the edge of the kitchen table, the telegram crushed in his other hand. Samuel? His mother touched his arm. What is it? She's alive, he whispered. Aiko's alive. With shaking hands, he smoothed out the telegram and gave it to his mother. Martha read it quickly, her eyes widening. The Japanese nurse you wrote about? The one you thought was lost? Sam nodded, unable to find more words. The news was too vast, too unexpected to process. For so many months he had carried grief for Aiko, alongside hope too fragile to acknowledge. Now, suddenly, possibility bloomed again. I need to get to the telegraph office in town, he said, already reaching for his coat. Need to send a reply before the lines go down. The roads are barely passable, Martha warned, and there's more snow coming. I'll take the South Ridge Trail. It'll be clear enough. Nothing could have stopped him that day. Sam rode through the snow with single-minded determination, the cold biting at his exposed skin. His thoughts raced ahead of him. Aiko alive, requesting to volunteer in America. Could it be possible, after all this time? At the telegraph office, the operator looked up in surprise. Didn't expect anyone today, what with the weather and all? Need to send an urgent wire, Sam said, pulling off his gloves. To the Red Cross in Billings. He composed the message with care, conscious of each word's cost. Regarding Nurse Tanaka. Stop welcome her volunteer work Bear Creek, Montana Stop Clinic. Established serving rural community stop contact. Samuel Kitteridge Bear. Creek for details. Stop. Then he added one more line, a message meant for Aiko alone. You will find a place to stand here. Stop on the long ride home. Snow began to fall again, large flakes that melted on his flushed face. The world seemed transformed, made new by unexpected joy. He remembered Aiko's words about wildflowers growing in Japan, a sign that peace was possible. Perhaps some seeds, given enough time, did take root after all. At the ranch, he found his parents waiting anxiously by the fire. Did you send your reply? Martha asked. Sam nodded, warming his hands by the flames. Now we wait. This nurse, Daniel said carefully. She means something to you. It wasn't a question, but Sam answered anyway. Yes, sir. She taught me that healing doesn't take sides. That mercy matters more than uniform color. He met his father's gaze. She saved lives, American lives, at great personal cost. Daniel nodded slowly. Reckon that counts for plenty in any ledger. The next weeks passed with excruciating slowness. Sam threw himself into his work, expanding the clinic's services, riding through snow to check on remote homesteads, helping his father repair winter damage to the barn. Each day, he scanned the horizon for the telegraph messenger who might bring news. February arrived with bitter winds and deeper snow. The clinic treated 3 cases of frostbite and an outbreak of winter fever among the Jacobson children. Sam worked long hours, returning to the ranch house each night exhausted but too restless to sleep well. Then, on a crystal-clear morning, when sunlight turned snow into diamonds, the telegraph messenger's horse appeared on the ridge road. Sam met him in the yard, his heart pounding painfully. Telegram for Kitteridge, the young man said, handing over the yellow envelope. With fingers that refused to be steady, Sam opened it. Nurse Tanaka arriving Bear Creek Station February 15th. Stop Red Cross escort provided. Stop please confirm arrangements. Stop February 15th. Just 10 days away. Sam read the telegram 3 times before he could believe it. He found his mother in the kitchen, kneading bread dough with rhythmic motions. "She's coming," he said simply. "February 15th. Martha wiped flour from her hands. "Then we have preparations to make. She'll need a place to stay." "I thought maybe the old bunkhouse—" "Don't be ridiculous, Samuel. It's winter in Montana. She'll stay in the house with us, in the guest room. I won't hear otherwise." Sam smiled at his mother's decisive tone. "Yes, ma'am." "This woman crossed an ocean to volunteer here," Martha continued, returning to her bread. "Least we can do is show proper hospitality." She glanced at him. "Though I expect some folks in town might not see it that way." "I know," Sam admitted. "It won't be easy for her, for any of us." "Few things worth doing are easy, son." Martha shaped the dough into a perfect loaf. "Your father and I didn't raise you to choose easy over right." As the day approached, Sam found himself filled with equal parts excitement and anxiety. Would Aiko be the same person he remembered? Had her injury changed her? Would she regret coming to this remote place so different from her home? The night before her arrival, he stood in the guest bedroom, checking that everything was ready. Fresh linens on the bed. A small vase of dried wildflowers on the dresser. His mother had hung clean curtains and laid a colorful quilt across the foot of the bed. "It's not fancy," Martha said from the doorway, "but it's warm and clean." "It's perfect, Ma. Thank you." In the quiet room, Sam placed a small gift on the pillow, a handmade journal bound in soft leather, its pages blank and waiting. Inside the cover, he had written a single line: "For new beginnings in a place where you can stand." February 15th dawned clear and cold. A fresh dusting of snow had fallen overnight, making the world look newly made. Sam rose before sunrise, too restless to sleep. He checked the guest room one last time, built up the fire in the main room, and paced the kitchen until his mother shooed him out. "Go harness the sleigh," she instructed. "The train won't arrive any faster with you wearing holes in my floor." The Bear Creek Station stood at the edge of town, a simple wooden building with a pot-bellied stove that warmed the small waiting room. Sam arrived early, nodding to the station master who eyed him curiously. "Expecting someone special, Kitteridge?" "Yes, sir. A nurse coming to help at the clinic." The station master raised his eyebrows, but asked no more questions. Soon others began arriving. Farmers headed to the livestock auction in Billings, a young couple going to visit relatives, the mail courier waiting for packages. As the appointed hour approached, Sam stood on the platform, scanning the tracks that stretched toward the horizon. The bright winter sun made him squint. His breath formed white clouds in the frigid air. Finally, a distant whistle announced the train's approach. Black smoke puffed against the blue sky as the locomotive rounded the bend, slowing as it neared the station. With a screech of brakes and a great hissing of steam, the train stopped. Doors opened. Passengers began to descend. First the mail courier from Billings, then a cattle broker, then a woman in a Red Cross uniform. Behind her came a smaller figure wearing a plain navy coat and clutching a simple suitcase. A Red Cross badge pinned to her lapel caught the sunlight. Aiko stepped carefully onto the platform, her dark eyes searching the small crowd. When she saw Sam, she stopped, uncertainty and hope mingling in her expression. Sam moved forward slowly, hardly daring to believe she was really there. She looked thinner than he remembered, and a small scar marked her temple where she had been struck. But her posture held the same quiet dignity, her eyes the same gentle intelligence. "Aiko," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sam?" she replied, testing the name as if to be sure she remembered correctly. "I found your letter." The Red Cross worker approached them. "Mr. Kitteridge, I'm Nurse Evans. I've accompanied Miss Tanaka from San Francisco." She handed him an envelope. "Her papers and medical clearance. She's officially here as a volunteer medical worker under the International Exchange Program." Sam thanked her, but his eyes never left Aiko. He wanted to embrace her but sensed it would embarrass her in public. Instead, he offered his hand. "Welcome to Montana." Aiko took his hand briefly. "Thank you for bringing me here." Around them, conversation had stopped. Other passengers and waiting families stared openly at the Japanese woman on their platform. Whispers began, quickly growing louder. "Is that a Jap? What's she doing here? Kitteridge brought her?" Sam ignored them, helping Aiko with her suitcase. "My mother's eager to meet you. We have the sleigh waiting." As they moved toward the exit, a man stepped directly into their path. Sam recognized Jack Wilson, whose brother had died in the Pacific. "You've got nerve, Kitteridge," Wilson said coldly, "bringing one of them here after what they did to our boys." Sam met his gaze steadily. "This is Nurse Tanaka. She saved American lives during the war, including mine. She's here to help at the clinic." "We don't need help from Japs," Wilson spat. "Mr. Wilson," Sam said quietly, "your mother has heart trouble. Doctor in Billings is too far if she has another spell. Nurse Tanaka has special training in cardiac care." Wilson's face flushed, but he stepped aside without another word. Outside, Martha Kitteridge waited with the sleigh. When she saw Aiko, she stepped forward with outstretched hands. "Welcome to our home, child," she said warmly. "We've been praying for your safe journey." Aiko bowed slightly, then took the offered hands. "Thank you for opening your home to stranger." "Any friend of Samuel's isn't a stranger to us," Martha assured her, wrapping a thick blanket around Aiko's shoulders as they settled into the sleigh. "Montana winters bite harder than a hungry wolf. You'll need warmer clothes than that city coat." As they drove away from town, Sam felt Aiko gradually relax beside him. She looked with wonder at the snow-covered landscape, the distant mountains sharp against the blue sky. "So much space," she murmured, "like ocean of snow." "That's Montana," Sam smiled. "Big sky country." At the ranch, Daniel waited on the porch, leaning on his cane. He nodded formally as Sam helped Aiko from the sleigh. "Welcome to Kitteridge Ranch," he said. "Hope the journey wasn't too hard on you." "Journey was long, but necessary," Aiko replied. "Thank you for allowing me to come." Inside the warm house, Martha showed Aiko to the guest room. "You rest now. Dinner's at 6. Nothing fancy, but plenty of it." Left alone, Aiko stood in the simple room, taking in its homey touches. The patchwork quilt, the dried flowers, the small desk under the window. On the pillow lay a leather-bound journal. She opened it, reading Sam's inscription with tears in her eyes. That evening, they gathered around the dining table. Martha had prepared her best Sunday dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes with gravy, fresh-baked bread, and apple pie for dessert. Daniel said grace, his deep voice filling the room with simple words of thanks. As they ate, Martha asked gentle questions about Aiko's journey and her recovery after the injury. Aiko answered politely, her English much improved but still formal. "American doctors fixed my head," she explained, touching the small scar at her temple. "Red Cross found me in field hospital after what happened at camp." "The ship?" Sam asked carefully. "The one in the typhoon?" "I never boarded. Too injured." She looked down at her plate. "Many months in hospital, then helping other patients. When occupation began, I volunteer as translator for medical teams. And now you're here, Martha said warmly. Just in time to help with spring vaccinations for the children. Later, as Martha cleared the dishes, Aiko insisted on helping. The two women worked side by side at the sink, creating a picture of domestic normalcy that moved Sam deeply. From his armchair by the fire, Daniel watched them thoughtfully. "Brave woman," he said quietly to Sam. "Coming alone to strange country." "She's always been brave," Sam replied, "even when it cost her everything." That night, Sam lay awake, listening to the familiar creaks of the old house, hardly believing that Aiko slept under the same roof. Against all odds, across oceans and battle lines, they had found their way back to each other. Not as enemies, not as friends exactly, but as two people bound by shared experiences that few others could understand. The next day, Sam showed Aiko the clinic. She walked through the converted tack room, touching the simple equipment with appreciation. "You built good place," she said. "Healing place." "We did," Sam corrected her. "I learned as much from you as from any medical book." Aiko smiled, a real smile that transformed her serious face. "Then we worked together again." "Partners," Sam agreed, "if you're willing." "I am willing." She straightened her shoulders with new purpose. "When do we begin?" News spread quickly through Bear Creek that Kitteridge is harboring an enemy nurse. Some called it treason. Others merely shook their heads at Sam's foolishness. A few, remembering their own wounded sons treated in field hospitals, reserved judgment. Aiko settled into a routine at the ranch. Each morning she rose early to help Martha with breakfast. Then she and Sam rode to the clinic, where they worked side by side, treating the steady stream of patients who braved social disapproval to seek medical care. Her gentle manner and skilled hands gradually won over those who came for treatment. Mrs. Jensen, whose arthritis had worsened during the harsh winter, found relief from Aiko's knowledge of special massage techniques. Young Billy Adams stopped crying during vaccinations when Aiko sang softly in Japanese while Sam administered the shot. Still, many in town kept their distance. Some mothers pulled their children to the opposite side of the street when Aiko passed. The general store owner watched her nervously when she came to purchase supplies, as if expecting her to attack the canned goods. Sam felt the sting of these small cruelties more keenly than Aiko seemed to. "You shouldn't have to endure this," he told her one evening as they rode home from the clinic. "In Japan now, Americans face same," she replied simply. "War leaves long shadows. Doesn't make it right. No, but makes it understandable." She looked at the golden light bathing the distant mountains. Time changes most hearts. The real test came 3 weeks after Aiko's arrival. Sam had ridden to a distant farm to treat a ranch hand's broken arm, leaving Aiko to mind the clinic alone for the first time. As she organized supplies, the bell over the door jangled. 3 veterans of the Pacific Campaign entered, Jack Wilson among them. They stood awkwardly, hats in hands, staring at the Japanese woman in a simple nurse's uniform. "Can I help you?" Aiko asked, keeping her voice steady. "Just wanted to see for ourselves," one man muttered. "The Jap nurse everyone's talking about." "I am nurse," Aiko agreed calmly. "Japanese, yes. Here to help if you need medical care." Jack Wilson stepped forward, his face hard. "My brother died at Guadalcanal, shot by soldiers who looked just like you." Aiko met his gaze without flinching. "I am sorry for your loss. War brings many sorrows to all sides." "Don't need your fake sympathy," Wilson snapped. He glanced at the Red Cross flag hanging on the wall. "Hiding behind that won't make us forget what your people did." Before Aiko could respond, the clinic door burst open. A frantic woman rushed in, carrying a small girl whose face was alarmingly red. "Help!" she cried. "She can't breathe right." Aiko immediately recognized the symptoms of severe allergic reaction, the swollen lips, the labored breathing. Without hesitation, she moved to help, guiding the mother to lay the child on the examination table. "When did this start?" she asked, already reaching for medicines. "Just now. She was playing in the field, then came running home like this," the mother explained, her voice shaking. "Please help her." Aiko worked quickly, mixing an injection of epinephrine from the emergency kit Sam had prepared. The child's breathing grew more labored, her small chest heaving with effort. "Hold her still," Aiko instructed, then administered the injection with practiced precision. The three veterans watched in stunned silence as Aiko continued treatment, applying cool cloths to the child's flushed skin, checking pulse and breathing, mixing a soothing drink once the worst had passed. Minutes stretched into a half hour. Gradually, the little girl's breathing eased. Color returned to normal. She began to respond to her mother's tearful questions. "She will be all right now," Aiko assured them, "but must watch for what caused reaction. Maybe plant in field? New food?" "Bees," the child whispered. "I found a honeycomb." "Ah, bee sting allergy. Very serious." Aiko wrote careful instructions for the mother. "Must be careful in future. Always carry medicine." She prepared a smaller dose to take home. "If happens again, use this right away, then come to clinic." The mother clutched Aiko's hand. "I don't know how to thank you. If you hadn't been here—" "No thanks needed," Aiko said softly. "This is why I am nurse." When the mother and child left, the clinic fell silent. The three veterans still stood near the door, their expressions now uncertain. Jack Wilson's hard gaze had softened slightly as he watched the Japanese nurse save a child everyone in town knew. His niece, in fact. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "That was quick thinking." Aiko nodded acknowledgement, but said nothing. Another veteran, who had remained silent until now, slowly removed his hat. "My name's Frank Taylor. I was a medic in the 105th. Saw plenty of dying men, both sides." He looked at Aiko with new respect. "Reckon mercy don't wear a uniform after all." The men left soon after, not exactly friendly, but no longer openly hostile. When Sam returned that evening, Aiko told him about the incident matter-of-factly, as if saving a child while being confronted by angry veterans was an ordinary occurrence. "You're something else, Aiko Tanaka," he said, shaking his head in wonder. "No, just nurse." She smiled slightly. "Same as you, just healer." Word of the incident spread through town, subtly shifting attitudes. The little girl's family sent a basket of fresh eggs to the clinic with a note of thanks addressed directly to Nurse Tanaka. Mrs. Wilson, Jack's mother, came for a heart checkup and brought a loaf of homemade bread. Not everyone changed their minds, of course. Some maintained that a Japanese person had no place in their American town, regardless of her nursing skills. But gradually, a space opened for Aiko in the community. A small place of respect earned through service. At the ranch, she became part of the family rhythm. She taught Martha to make rice properly and learned in return how to bake Montana biscuits. She sat with Daniel in the evenings, listening to his stories of early ranching days while mending clothes with neat, precise stitches. And each day, she worked alongside Sam in the clinic, their partnership deepening into something neither had words to describe. Something beyond friendship, but carefully contained, as if both feared to examine it too closely. Spring approached with its promise of renewal. Snow began to melt, revealing patches of earth ready for planting. Birds returned from southern journeys, and in Bear Creek, a Japanese nurse continued her quiet battle against prejudice, winning not through argument, but through the simple, powerful act of caring for all who needed help. March winds gave way to April showers. The Montana landscape transformed almost overnight. Brown earth turning green, wildflowers appearing in colorful patches, creeks swollen with snowmelt rushing toward distant rivers. Beside the clinic, Aiko planted a small garden. She arranged stones in careful patterns, creating a space that reminded her of home while embracing the wild beauty of Montana. Among transplanted native flowers, she sowed the precious wildflower seeds from Martha's meadow. "Will they grow?" Sam asked, watching her pat soil gently around the last seeds. "If meant to grow, they will," Aiko replied. "Seeds know their purpose." As spring advanced, the clinic grew busier. Ranchers injured during calving season, children with spring colds, elderly neighbors whose joints ached with changing weather. Sam and Aiko worked in seamless partnership, their separate skills combining to serve the community's needs. One sunny afternoon, they held a free medical fair in the town square. Pastor Hall had suggested it as a way to reach those still hesitant to visit the ranch clinic. They set up tables under budding trees, offering basic checkups, vaccinations, and health advice. At first, few approached Aiko's station, but when Mrs. Peterson loudly proclaimed that the Japanese nurse had eased her arthritis pain more than any treatment from Billings, others grew curious. By day's end, Aiko had examined 24 patients and demonstrated simple exercises for common ailments. On the way home, Sam noticed Aiko smiling to herself. "Good day?" he asked. "Very good day," she agreed. "Many people, many chances to help. They're starting to see you for who you are, not where you're from." Aiko considered this. Perhaps. Or perhaps they just need help more than they need to hold grudges. At the ranch, changes continued. With Sam's strength and Daniel's guidance, the barn received its long-needed new roof. Fences were repaired. Fields were plowed for spring planting. The Kitteridge place began to resemble its former self. Martha noticed the transformation in her son as well. The quiet, haunted man who had returned from war gradually gave way to someone more like the Sam she remembered, laughing more easily, sleeping more soundly, finding purpose in each day's work. "That girl has been good medicine for you," she remarked one evening as they washed dishes together. "We've been good medicine for each other," Sam replied simply. Martha nodded, understanding more than Sam realized. "She fits here, doesn't she? Like she was meant to find her way to this place." "Yes, ma'am, I believe she was." Aiko found her own place in the household routine. She learned to bake bread in Martha's kitchen and to identify edible wild plants in the Montana woods. Daniel taught her to ride a gentle mare named Daisy, laughing with genuine delight at her initial nervousness and subsequent pride in mastering the skill. "Never thought I'd teach a Japanese nurse to ride Western style," he commented to Sam afterward. "World's changing faster than an old man can keep up." "For the better, wouldn't you say?" Sam asked. Daniel watched Aiko brushing Daisy with careful attention. "Yes, son. For the better." The pastor began including Aiko in church activities, first inviting her to help with the Sunday school children, then asking her to assist with the church's medical cabinet. Some congregation members grumbled, but others welcomed her quiet presence and willing hands. "Love thy neighbor isn't conditional," Pastor Hall reminded his flock during a sermon. "It doesn't say accept those who look different or come from far away. It simply commands love, the hardest and highest calling we have." After the service, he introduced Aiko to a visiting missionary who had served in Korea. The two women spoke animatedly about medical needs in Asia, forming an immediate connection that transcended national boundaries. "The missionary society could use your knowledge," the pastor told Aiko later. "If you'd be willing to speak at their next meeting?" Aiko looked uncertain. "My English is perfectly clear," he assured her, "and your experience is valuable. Think about it. That evening, Aiko sat on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Sam joined her, a comfortable silence between them. "Pastor asked me to speak to missionary group," she finally said, "about medical needs in Japan." "Will you do it?" "I think yes." She turned to him. "Never imagined when I came, being part of community this way." Sam smiled. "Communities are living things. They grow and change, just like people." "Some people change less easily than others," she observed. "True enough. But you've won over the hardest cases, including my father, who hasn't changed his mind about anything since 1922. Aiko laughed, a sound still rare enough to make Sam's heart lift whenever he heard it. In the golden light, with her guard down, she looked younger, unburdened by the weight of war and displacement. "I am happy here," she said softly, as if confessing a secret. "Did not expect to find happiness again." Sam wanted to reach for her hand, but settled for moving slightly closer on the step. "Happiness finds its way to those who bring it to others. At least that's what my mother always says." "Your mother is wise, woman," Aiko replied, echoing words she had said many times during their first days together in the Pacific. As darkness fell, they remained on the porch, watching stars appear one by one in the vast Montana sky. Neither spoke of the future, of what might lie beyond this season of healing. For now, it was enough to sit side by side as the day ended, at peace with each other and the world. In Aiko's garden beside the clinic, the first green shoots of wildflowers pushed through the soil, tentative at first, then stronger as they reached toward sunlight. Montana seeds and Japanese care combining to create new beauty in once wounded earth. Summer arrived in a riot of colors and scents. Meadows bloomed with wildflowers. Creeks ran clear and cool between grassy banks. The mountains stood sharp against impossibly blue skies. After the long winter, Bear Creek embraced the season with grateful hearts. At the Kitteridge Ranch, the transformation was complete. Fields flourished with spring wheat. Cattle grazed on lush pastures. The barn stood strong with its new roof. Even Daniel moved more easily, his arthritis soothed by a combination of Aiko's herbal remedies and the warmth of summer days. The clinic had become a valued community resource. People came from neighboring towns, drawn by reports of the skilled partnership between the Montana medic and the Japanese nurse. What had once seemed strange now felt natural. Two healers working together, their different backgrounds creating a whole greater than its parts. Aiko's garden beside the clinic had matured into a place of unexpected beauty. Montana wildflowers mingled with arrangements inspired by Japanese traditions. Patients often sat among the blooms after treatment, finding peace in the carefully tended space. One bright June morning, Sam worked alone in his father's workshop behind the barn. Pieces of seasoned pine lay on his workbench, gradually taking shape under his careful hands. He had risen before dawn each day for a week, working on this secret project whenever clinic duties allowed. Daniel hobbled out to check his progress, nodding approval at the nearly finished piece. "Fine work, son. Your grandfather would be proud. He was always the woodworker in the family." Sam ran his hand over the smooth surface. "Think she'll like it?" "She'll understand it," Daniel replied. "That matters more." The project was a bench, not elaborate, but crafted with attention to every detail. Its lines were simple and strong, designed to weather Montana seasons for many years. Across the back, Sam had carved words that had waited a long time to be said. That same afternoon, children played outside the ranch clinic, their laughter carrying on the summer breeze. Inside, Sam and Aiko finished treating the last patient of the day. Old Mr. Jenkins, whose heart was failing, but whose spirit remained strong. "You two make a good team," he commented, as Aiko wrapped his arthritic hands with medicated bandages. Wouldn't have believed it a year ago, but there it is. Sam smiled. Sometimes the best partnerships come from unlikely places. Like peace after war, Aiko added quietly. After Mr. Jenkins left, Sam turned to Aiko with unusual nervousness. I have something to show you. Outside. In the golden afternoon light, neighbors and patients had begun gathering near the clinic. Martha stood with Pastor Hall and his wife. Tommy Reeves, who now helped at the clinic 2 days a week, grinned from beside the garden gate. Even Jack Wilson waited with his mother, their initial hostility replaced by cautious respect. What is happening? Aiko asked, confused by the small crowd. A dedication, Sam explained. He led her to the center of her garden, where a covered object stood on the newly laid stone path. For you, for us, for the community. With a gentle tug, he removed the cloth covering. There stood the bench, golden pine gleaming in the sunlight, smooth curves inviting rest. Across the back, carefully carved letters spelled, "Mercy sits here." Aiko's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. The bench was more than furniture. It was a symbol, a statement, a permanent acknowledgement of their shared journey. The clinic has served over 200 patients since we opened, Sam said, addressing the gathered neighbors. People from all walks of life, all backgrounds. What began as a simple idea has become something that belongs to all of us. He gestured to Aiko. None of it would have been possible without Nurse Tanaka, who traveled halfway around the world to bring healing to a community that didn't always welcome her. Her courage and compassion remind us daily that mercy knows no boundaries. Pastor Hall stepped forward. We've asked Miss Tanaka to say a few words at this dedication. Aiko looked startled, then composed herself. She had prepared nothing, but spoke from her heart. When I came to America, I carried many wounds, not all visible. Her voice was soft but clear. In this place, among you, I found healing for myself while helping others heal. She touched the carved words on the bench. In war, I learned that pain is universal. In peace, I learned that kindness is also universal. Even pain, when shared, can become a seat for love. Her simple words moved many to tears. Mrs. Wilson dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. The mother of the child Aiko had saved from bee stings nodded in understanding. After a brief prayer from Pastor Hall, people came forward to shake Aiko's hand and admire the bench. The atmosphere was one of quiet celebration, not just of a piece of furniture, but of the community's own growth. As the crowd dispersed, Sam and Aiko found themselves alone in the garden. The bench waited, sunlight warming its smooth surface. Shall we try it? Sam suggested. They sat together, feeling the solid support beneath them. The inscription curved above their shoulders like a blessing. Still hurt when you sit? Sam asked softly, remembering their first meeting. Aiko smiled, understanding the reference immediately. Not anymore, she said. She reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. Not anymore. The simple touch spoke volumes. They had traveled so far, from enemies to reluctant allies, from wary friends to something deeper. War had thrown them together across battle lines, but peace had given them the chance to choose each other freely. Around them, the garden bloomed in vibrant colors. Montana wildflowers and Japanese stone arrangements created a harmony neither could have imagined alone. Beyond the fence, Bear Creek continued its daily life, changed in small but significant ways by the unlikely partnership that had taken root among them. Sam's fingers tightened around Aiko's. I've been thinking about expanding the clinic, maybe adding a proper surgery room, a place for patients who need overnight care. Good idea, she agreed. I can teach local women basic nursing. Build our own small hospital over time. They spoke of the future with easy confidence, a future they now saw clearly as shared. The war felt distant, its shadows fading in the bright Montana sunlight. In its place grew something neither had dared hope for during those dark days in the Pacific. A life rebuilt, a purpose rediscovered, a love that had crossed oceans and battle lines to find its home. As evening approached, they remained on the bench, watching swallows circle overhead. The mountain breeze carried the scent of pine and wild flowers. From the ranch house, lamplight beckoned with promises of home and family. Sam and Iko sat together on the bench carved. With truth, no longer enemies, no longer hurting, finding rest at last on mercy itself.